today's workshop, which is the 12th one in our series, is on the topic of discrimination and empathy. I sent out some reading. I hope you've had the chance to have a look through some of that. And just to start off this workshop, give a little bit of bring everyone to the same level. A teacher in the USA called Jane Elliott created racism in her class by telling children with brown eyes that they were better than the children with blue eyes. On that day, not only did the brown-eyed students perform better academically, they also immediately started to discriminate against the blue-eyed students without being given any instructions to do so. On the second day, she reversed the roles, and sure enough, it was the blue-eyed children performing better academically and discriminating against the brown-eyed. On the third day, she explained that there were no differences and that she had done this as an experiment to give them a sample of what it's like to experience racism. In that time, this was all in the time she did all of this, and it's like a couple of days after Martin Luther King had been assassinated. So 20 years later, the grown-up students were filmed stating how important that experience had been for them to learn about how not to discriminate. One of the most important conclusions was that Jane proved that children performed at their worst on the day that they were discriminated against, dispelling in this way the myths created by so-called scientific research about differences in IQ in various ethnic groups, which used to be a thing. People used to say that people from different races were less intelligent, and they came up with all this data to prove it. So I'm just going to put my PowerPoint presentation on. First, I'm going to have to open it. Okay, so here's a riddle. A man and his son are victims in a car accident. The father dies at the scene and the son is rushed to hospital for life-saving surgery. The surgeon arrives at the operating theatre and says, "I cannot operate on this child, he is my son." Who is the surgeon? Any thoughts? I can't see you because I'm looking at the presentation. So if anyone got an answer, just jump in. A man and his son are victims in a car accident. The father dies at the scene and the son is rushed to the hospital for life-saving surgery. The surgeon arrives at the operating theatre and says, "I cannot operate on this child. He is my son."
I think I have a theory.
Go on.
Okay. So the man and his son are victims in a car accident.
Yep.
Are the victims separate from the man? And the father is not the father of
the communication broke up a little bit, Maisa.
Turn on your video, sorry, Maisa. It's going to be easier for you.
Yeah, turn off the video.
Okay.
So say that again.
Okay, so a man and his son, the man and the son are separate. The man is not the father of the son in this case.
No, no, okay.
Oh, no.
No, that's not the answer.
Okay.
Bereket, Kat?
Maybe, probably the surgeon is a stepfather, or just
no, but it's not a bad attempt.
I feel like I'm starting to kind of get an idea, but I need to like think it through for a second to make sure it actually does make sense in my mind.
The answer is when I tell you it, the answer is going to be so obvious.
Son or victims. Yeah, is the surgeon just like the grandfather?
No,
Like or is there some kind of generational thing?
no.
Hang on, I just want to think for just a few more seconds and then I'll
Okay.
go.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just feeling blank as to, but I'm not very good at riddles in general. So
What's the gender of the surgeon?
Oh, right. Oh, of course.
the surgeon would be
Yes,
the mother.
yeah.
Okay, so that's one possibility, which I think is shocking that the three ladies don't get that. But an alternative could be that, you know, that the child is the son of a same-sex male couple, and the father could be, you know, it could be the other father. Yeah. But anyway, the point of this is that look how you have an image when someone says the word surgeon, the gender, the representation is male. Yeah. Which is clearly obviously not the case. Okay, so the next one. This is an extract from someone's autobiography. We put down briefly in Khartoum, where we changed to an Ethiopian Airways flight to Addis. Here I experienced a rather strange sensation. As I was boarding the plane, I saw that the pilot was black. I had never seen a black pilot before, and the instant I did, I had to quell my panic. How could a black man fly a plane? But a moment later, I caught myself. I had fallen into the mindset, thinking Africans were inferior and that flying was a white man's job. I sat back in my seat and chided myself for such thoughts. Who do you think wrote that?
It's going to be someone rogue who's black themselves, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the word
Probably Nelson Mandela.
Hey, Nelson Mandela, exactly. And here's an example of a man who dedicated himself to the struggle of equality when he was in a new situation that he hadn't experienced before. The mechanical tendency, the mechanical thought that appeared in his head was that you know, a black man is unable to fly a plane.
But Tony, it's how the conscience, it's how images work. That's also a little bit the problem of it. It's okay.
Yes,
We see the difference. We don't see what is normal. We see what is not normal. So we are shocked by. So it's yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's. I mean, I'm sure we've all had similar experiences. Very dear friend of mine who was in Presenza with us, Sylvia. She said she had the same experience when she got onto a plane and saw that the pilot was a woman. She thought, "Oh my God!"
But I had the same experience when you get a train where there's no pilot. You are like, oh! So it's not like you. It's not about something. It's about something which is not normal.
It's about having a set of preconceived ideas about what someone is or isn't capable of doing, which is a form of discrimination, which is not something that we weren't born with that. Yeah, that has been trained. You know, as a small child, as a small baby, you don't care who feeds you. You don't think, oh, that man can't possibly be trying to feed me. He hasn't got the capability of it, you know. So these are all things which are learned, and we acquire things. We acquire ideas like this mechanically through our life experiences, and they act on us even if we've got a very different view of the world. Okay. Right. So From the point of view of nonviolent journalism, all human beings are born equal, but we are not born into equal situations. We either live or die, suffer or thrive based on an accident of birth. We could talk at length about the history of discrimination and how it has been structured into the very fabric of our society and culture. However, what is unequivocally true is that along with almost everything in life, to discriminate against someone, to see another person as less human than we are, or to not discriminate against someone, to see them as equally human as ourselves, are both choices. And reflecting on the topic of what is violence from workshop 1, in which we discussed the bodily registers of violence and the mental suffering associated with it, and also reflecting on the topic of valid action from workshop 5, in which we could distinguish between valid actions and contradictory actions based on the bodily registers, it is clear that discrimination is a form of violence, and it is also clear that violent actions are contradictory because they create suffering in others and ultimately in oneself. Finally, you may recall that this series of workshops and the introductory chapter to the book Nonviolent Journalism itself started off with the topic of human intentionality, this capacity that we are all endowed with to choose in front of stimuli. Thus, we are not mechanical beings. If we discriminate or not, it is a choice. One of the goals of our training in nonviolent journalism is to help you profoundly understand that we can make choices in every second of every day. Our calling as nonviolent journalists is to be as awake as possible, as awake as we possibly can be in our work, so that we can act as intentionally as possible in the world and in our private lives, and thus gain more control of our lives within the limitations imposed by the system. So what we're going to do as a starting exercise, David, I'd like you to set up a breakout group if you can. I'm going to put some questions in the chat.
I don't have the break.
David, you don't have it. I made you co-host. Did you?
No,
not
no,
work?
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's
Got it?
fine.
Excellent.
Yeah. So how many groups do we do?
Just one.
Just one.
So I want you to do some work of reflection for yourselves, and then have a conversation amongst yourselves. So the questions are: write a list of the characteristics that you have, which you sometimes feel are the source of discrimination in your own life. Yeah, so what is it about you that you feel other people discriminate against you for? With internal honesty, write a list of characteristics that others have which you are prejudiced against. Write down a short list of events in which you were either the victim or the agent in any form of discrimination. And once you've done that kind of personal reflection and made a few notes for yourself, I want you to have a conversation on how to deal with discrimination in everyday life. I'm sure you've had experiences. I'm sure you have tactics for dealing with it. And then, as a group, what are the observations that you can make on the basis of this exercise? And I just want to put as a reflection, as you go into that, one of the principles of valid action, which we saw back in the 5th workshop. It doesn't matter which faction events have placed you in. What matters is for you to comprehend that you haven't chosen any faction. So with that, David, if you would start the group, we're going to bring you back at 1/4 to the hour. So you have 15 minutes for your reflections and a conversation, and to just come up with, a couple of points that you think you all agree on in terms of the observation that you can tell us, you can present back to us.
Okay. Let's go.
I just want to say thank you all for your consistency in coming back week after week for these workshops. It's been real pleasure having you all here. any thoughts, any observations? What have you come up with? Your conversation about discrimination. Snigdha, you've got your microphone. Kat. Well done, Kat. Snigdha.
I think one of the things towards the end got me thinking is like, how do you differentiate between either someone is discriminating against you or they're just treating you differently? Because I think that again is like a different thing. I mean, they could be treating you differently for so many reasons, because you're just like a person unknown to them, or it is like the situation you're in, etc. And or is it discrimination? Because I think discrimination somewhere also comes with like innate like kind of dislike for something and hate for something without you even having a reason, like a logical reason as to why you kind of don't like this person. Because I think some of the examples we were discussing was like, why would you discriminate against this person? Like, for example, I gave like a simple example. I was brought up in a society where, to me, even like people who were drinking and smoking were bad people and you're not supposed to associate with them. It was as simple as that. It was nothing related to race, gender, ethnicity, and that is just like far off. But that is the kind of place I went to school in. That is the kind of society or the city, small town I was in. And it was only later, it was like, oh no, one thing is not defining people. When I went out to college and stuff like that, no, that is not how you can discriminate. You can judge people on. But for a long time, I would not even talk to people or kind of distance myself if I found out they had like certain habits. That's all. It is that, nothing bigger than that. But I don't know if it would be just, so I think it depends. There are so many things on the basis of which you can treat people differently. And then, of course, when I was giving my example, I was like, I was lucky enough to not face discrimination much in my life. Like I was brought up in a house where there's no difference between son or daughter, or a boy or a girl. It was never like, you can only do this or that, you can do whatever you want. And even later on, when like I went out and like I was in cities or I was in colleges or in communities where it wasn't like because I was a woman, I was like facing undue kind of oppression or like not given proper opportunities and stuff like that. So the only kind of, I think, differentiation or discrimination I faced was just like being a woman in society in general. So it wasn't like a individual discriminating against me. It is like the societal rules are set up like that, where there is different, like the different kind of behavior towards you, like you're supposed to talk in a certain way and like dress in a certain way, behave in a certain way, etc. So yeah, I don't know if it makes sense, but I think towards the end of a conversation, because we were also thinking, as Catherine was saying, that to say that you have been discriminated against is also kind of like, how do you make it not victimizing and disempowering to yourself also? So I think it's a lot of complicated thoughts flowing in my mind.
Kat, did you want to add anything to that?
I feel like Snigdha really summed up a lot of it really, really well. I suppose the only little thing that's more or less along the lines of what Snigdha was saying is obviously the topic of gender came up because so obviously over history women have been massively discriminated against, but it's kind of interesting in the sense that each of us in our individual and personal lives have really not experienced a lot of discrimination for being women. And like, but I was kind of talking about how like, well, I've definitely had like cases where definitely there has been like, I've been treated differently because of being a woman, or treated badly, or whatever, because of being a woman. But that's not been my majority life experience. And so I've kind of like more segmented that as, well, that's that group of people who think and feel that particular way, but I'm not going to think of myself as being someone who's discriminated against or make that my identity or kind of get mad at all men. Like, do you know, like I just, which I feel like sometimes the more extreme side of the feminist movement really pushes that and pushes women to think that they're being discriminated against more than they actually are. Whereas if women take a step back, most women in our Western society, at least, like you'd find that in your personal life, like there's not actually that much that's tangible that you can point to. Like there is so much discrimination in so many places and in so many ways, and so like the feminist movement is still so important. But I also feel like there's a bit of a oppression Olympics going on at the moment, where everyone's trying to one up each other with, well, I'm being discriminated against this way and that way, and I feel like cisgendered men are like being treated so badly, like like it's now flipped.
Oh, those poor cisgendered men.
No, but like seriously, like for no other reason than being a guy, like for no other reason than that, men are being told that they're horrible people. I don't think that's right. Okay, some have been over history, but I don't know, it breaks my heart. I've got loads of great guys in my life who are not like that at all, and I hate it that they're branded as that. So I just think it's a really interesting topic, especially in the current times. But yeah, just what does discrimination actually mean, I suppose, is my question.
Any other thoughts from Bruna, Maisa, Barakat?
I just wanted to add a few things to what Catherine and Snigdha said, because we talked a lot about the topic of gender, and we talked about how us personally we're not literally discriminated against because of our gender, but society discriminates against women in certain parts. For example, here in Tunisia, women have their full rights, and I think we have equal pay as well, legally, and women are expected to be treated as equal as men in front of the law. But sometimes we would notice that, like Snigdha has said, that women are expected to dress in a certain manner or speak in a certain manner, and to sometimes women are expected to lower their voices when they talk to the others. Otherwise, they would be told that they are strongly opinionated, or that they are too loud for a woman, for example. I heard that in my surroundings, but I never went through that, luckily. So yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. I think there's a couple of things in this topic. David, off you go.
All right, so this is a subject I like, and discrimination has to do with power. So it's the group within power is going to discriminate everybody else to make sure it's in power. So if it's need to discriminate the woman and keep the work and keep the money and keep the land and keeps the production, is going to discriminate the Chinese who cannot buy house here in the US until 50 years ago. He does discriminate the women to participate in the workforce. He's going to discriminate. And so we are used to that discrimination, and we also have this mechanical habit of having this type of mechanical vision of how the world should be, and so the women are not capable of doing things and that, and so the first one who tried to play tennis, of course she discriminated, and the second one who tried to play tennis, of course she discriminated, until he become something which absolutely normal and everybody can do it. So that's my short story. But it's the issue is not the discrimination; it's the people who are discriminated are the issue. And I think we are not clearly targeting the discriminator, and we try to. Who are creating the discrimination at the first place. I mean, in the US, you still have no compensation for African American, and the discrimination, and the police who kills the black guy, he know that it's a black guy, and he did it because it's not a black guy. It's not an accident. It's not something he didn't realize. It's intentional. And so discrimination is more intentional than a problem of landscape of formation and so on and so forth. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there are some points here. One of it is, what's the intention behind the person who is doing the discriminating?
The power.
That's right. And how do I register it? Because sometimes, obviously sometimes I might say, okay, right, I'm not going to ask you to, I don't know, write an article or, whatever, because I don't think you're capable of doing it. That's kind of me with my imagination imposing what I think on top of what you and basically doing your thinking for you. That obviously is something which is we want to avoid. And the other point is that the discrimination, the mechanical discrimination. I'm very sorry to say this, but I have a discrimination, an almost mechanical discrimination against very, very fat people. They can be really lovely. They are lovely human beings, but if I have to sit next to one on a plane for 6 hours, I know I feel a discrimination inside me, and it's something which it's almost a mechanical thing. I can say, all right, get over it, but it's something which comes mechanically. So what we're trying to do, obviously, is develop this capacity as human beings to see everyone else equally as human as we all are, and therefore be able to treat them all in exactly the same way. Regardless of their situation. And that's important for us as journalists, because unless we can really feel the human in the other person. And this is a little bit where one of the readings that Silo wrote, which is called Regarding the Human, this ability to be able to actually register another human being as such, as a human being, and rather than seeing them as, somehow less. I think we all know the stories of how, the propaganda in the Second World War worked, where there was a specific campaign by the media in that extremely right-wing government to make the population see the Jewish population as vermin, as rats, and with that dehumanization, they were able to commit all kinds of violence against them. So this is
and now they're doing it against the Muslim.
And now it happens with the Muslims, yes, absolutely.
In Europe, yeah.
Yeah. Look at the different way that many countries have opened their arms to Ukrainian refugees, whereas, Afghan refugees, no one is saying, hey, I've got a spare room in my house, why don't we take in some Afghan refugees? Or if there are, they're very, very few. So it's a cultural thing, and it's also and it's a problem that we need to work with, but we need to be aware of it. The point of this is to be aware of the topic.
And why does the discriminator cannot accept the other one as equal? Because that's what the question is. It's what is the issue of what do I lose by recognizing you as equal as me? That's where it gets really complicated. Because at the register, I'm going to lose. If I let too many immigrants coming to my country, I'm going to lose power, I'm going to lose work, I'm going to lose money, I'm going to lose blah, 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 blah. If the Palestinians have the same right, then the Jew is going to get is going to lose the identity. I mean, everyone has something to lose by, and that's really where the work is. It's this illusion of having to lose something. It's really what is complicated. Like the US against China, I mean, it's like, what are they going to lose? I mean, it's you can go on and on.
The biggest form of discrimination these days is people who have money and those who don't have money. And people who have large amounts of money will do everything they can to keep. Yeah,
but people are afraid. The people who have money are afraid that they're not going to get money if they give too much money to the other. So yeah. I mean, it's
without having any understanding about what money is and where it comes from.
Well, they do know where they come from, but
they don't, David. No one understands how financial processes work, which lead to you having money in your pocket or in your bank account. Now, once you get in there and you study it, it's completely insane how it all works. But it's not a topic for today's workshop. Right, we're going to move on to the next part of this exercise, and we're going to do something which we haven't done before in previous exercises. We're going to work a little bit with the space of representation. Yeah, so I'm going to ask you all to follow me. What I'm going to say, I'm going to read some text, and I want you to follow it. I want you to close your eyes, follow what I'm saying. I'm going to guide you through a situation, and we're going to meditate on something. You can turn your cameras off if you feel uncomfortable with it. Absolutely fine, no problem. But just sit comfortably, follow what I'm going to say, and we're going to see what comes out. So I want you all to take a minute or so to connect with the depths of your internal world. We all have one. Whenever you close your eyes and disconnect from the outside world, you make contact with your inner world. We're going to connect with our inner world, and we're going to try to connect with those registers of discrimination. So sit comfortably, relax your body, take a few seconds to review your body from head to toe. Locate those parts of your body that are tense and just try and relax those muscles. Probably there's tension in your shoulders. Just very, very quickly review your body from your head to your toe. Anything which is unusually tense, relax it. Your stomach, your heart, your brain. Let all the noise in your brain die down as you listen to what I'm saying. Other random thoughts will occur. Don't pay them any attention. Allow your breathing to become slightly deeper. As you exhale, relax your muscles even further and quieten your mind. To reinforce the sensation of your breathing, it helps to place your hand on the center of your chest and feel your heart as your breath comes into your body and your chest as it expands and contracts. In this meditative state, just try and imagine the following scenes. You're standing in the street and you see a person approaching who you never discriminate against. To you, this is someone beautiful, shining, radiant. How do you feel the presence of this other individual as they approach? Who is this person? Put a face to them. Maybe it's someone very dear to you, but certainly no one who you would ever dream about discriminating against. Try and feel the presence of this other individual. Now, in the street, as you're standing there, you see a person approach who has all those characteristics that you discriminate against. How do you feel the presence of this other individual? See their face. Try to connect to that feeling that's created when you're in the presence of this person. Now, applying your intentionality, change your look, change the way you see this unpleasant person. Look at them the way you look at the person you don't discriminate against. Smile at them. Intentionally try to feel the presence of the person you discriminate against in the same way as the person you don't discriminate against. Imagine their biography, their struggles, the difficulties they have experienced in life just to survive. Trying to connect to their suffering. As you connect to their suffering, a sensation of empathy towards that person will arise. If you can, give that person a hug. And make a decision to tell their story. That's the end of the exercise. A simple game with mental images. We've spoken before in previous workshops about the space of representation and the importance of mental images, because mental images have got the capacity to generate all kinds of energy, and that psychosomatic energy is really important in the work that we're doing. Yeah, everything that we do in life is connected to a mental image. So the thing is that mental images can be intentionally modified, intentionally changed. And that was just a very, very small exercise. For those who are interested in how this phenomenon works, let me know and I can forward you some more materials on it. So I'm going to put you all back in a group, and having done the exercise and listened to the conversation that we've all had before, I would like you all to make a synthesis, a summary, something that you all agree on the topic of discrimination and empathy. It's going to take 10 minutes or so to do that. And then when you come back with something that you all agree on, then we're going to listen to that and your personal conclusions about this topic. So David, when you can, if you can set up the group again. And
now
just have a conversation and come back with a synthesis, with a summary of what you've taken away from this conversation. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So, right, Bruna, what did you make of all of that?
Actually, Kat was going to be the spokesperson because
Right, go on then.
right.
But okay, Kat, if you want, let's hear your thoughts, your views.
Well, these are everyone's views.
Yes,
I just
splendid.
wrote down what everyone else said, so
Great.
I take no responsibility. Okay, so this is sort of like the sort of summarizing and concluding thoughts. I kind of took a sentence from each person's ideas.
Lovely.
So, discrimination is a complex topic with nuances that can go down to the length of a person's name, because Berkat was talking about people being, or a guy who was discriminated against because his name was too long, so he wasn't allowed to open a bank account. So
No.
the idea of like, apparently, yeah, so the idea of like, it can be so specific and so nuanced. It's important to be aware of discriminatory attitudes within ourselves. Empathy is an important tool to help us let go of our discrimination and treat others as equal humans. We need to avoid generalizing an individual experience with one person that we've had with one person to a whole group of people who may look or act like them.
Uh-huh.
And then Bruna made the very good point that, you know, the reason why we can tend to discriminate is because it's easier for our brains. It's just easier for our brains to kind of like group people into specific groups so that we know how to react and how to respond in society. And I kind of added on to that, you know, from an evolutionary standpoint, like at one point in time, it actually would have been, you know, a sort of a way of like measuring danger. Like, is this other tribe for me or against me? You base it on, say, I use the example of the tartans. You know, does this person have the my clan tartan or are they an ally or not? And you do base it on what the person looks like or what they're wearing in order to know whether or not you're in danger. However, we now live in a society where what a person looks like is not representative of who they are. Like, there may be things that are linked, but especially with globalization, it's no longer a valid way to actually work out. You have to have a conversation to work out whether or not you're on the same page with someone. And so because of that, even though it's harder for our brains now to make those changes, like we have to, because it's no longer a valid way to perceive the world and to move in the world effectively.
Thank you, Kat. Yeah,
Yeah,
as I
no,
was listening to that, I was thinking, yes, I discriminate against 100% of spiders, regardless of whether or not they have the capacity to actually do me any damage. And there's kind of that those automatic responses happen when you see someone with a specific characteristic. You know, I'm sure Snigda's parents would have been horrified at anyone who had a tattoo, for instance. Snigda wouldn't have been allowed to talk to people who had tattoos. Well, that was very much something, you know, of my childhood. You know, you didn't talk to people with tattoos because they were a little bit weird. And there were these kind of cultural things which are operating, and when we have to make a mental effort to actually break down those stereotypes and those views that sometimes we have against other people. Anyone else got anything to add to any of that? No? Very good. Okay, your assignment, if you would like to do one, is to write an article on a group of people or an individual that suffer from discrimination. I know it sounds very vague and it's very open. You can take whatever you like from that and come up with an article that you would like to do, and let's see if we can work it through and have something published in Presenza on any of that topic. So thank you all very much. It's been nice to see you all again, and good luck with your productions. And I look forward to seeing you all next Saturday.